Confidence is certainly high with a lot of these players, but what happens when things don't go right? How do they overcome their insecurities on the field, and can we learn from them? To answer that, we recently brought in Rick Peterson. He has spent more than 30 years as a coach in baseball, 6 of those seasons as the Mets pitching coach. He has a new book called Crunch Time: How to Be Your Best When It Matters the Most. In the book, you'll read about how overcoming stress can be helped by what Rick calls reframing.
What happens, people that are highly successful, fear, worry, and doubt's the #1 public enemy that we all deal with. And in pressure situations, if we ask ourselves, what's the opportunity, then we shift the threat to the opportunity. And that's what reframing is all about, because we all deal with the fear, worry, and doubt, whether it's family pressures, financial pressures, career pressures. We're all the same. And if anybody thinks that Hall of Famers like Tom Glavine or Pedro Martinez, fear, worry, and doubt doesn't come into their game, just if Met fans can probably remember, on a Saturday afternoon in front of 50,000 people in the 3rd inning, Tom Glavine got knocked out. And some of the people here may be guilty that are watching this show of those 50,000 people chanting Glavine sucks to the point you could hear it at LaGuardia.
Yeah.
So you don't think he was overcome with fear, worry, and doubt? Without question.
Yeah.
You know, so that's all the whole part of coaching.
I love some of the stories in here as an example of how you have helped certain guys. Tom Glavine, you helped resurrect his career in the twilight of his career so that he'd get his 300th victory with the Mets. But you've also helped some other guys whose names we may not remember. Chad Bradford, another great example. I mean, this is a guy who you helped from a mental aspect or from a physical aspect as well to help get him a $10 million contract with the Baltimore Orioles. I mean, you impacted the Bradford family's life, their entire lives from a financial standpoint. How does it make you feel to be able to impact people in that way?
Well, this is a privilege. To be able to do what I've done for my career, it's a privilege. And when I started doing this as a coach, I realized that the quality of a person's life is to truly make a difference in someone else's in a positive way. So it's a selfless path. And once you go down that path, it's all about identifying with that individual's heart and soul and realizing it's about bridging the gap between potential and performance. And the mental game is the difference maker at the major league level.
But the guys have to
question.
buy into that, though, don't they?
Well, they buy into being best. They all want to be best, and they all want to fully untap that. And when you can identify what that process is for them to be best, they know what their limitations are, and they know what they know what they need to do to bridge that gap. You know, so there's not really a buy-in. It's really a case of we're all in this together, and we all realize that we're all committed to being best.
And is there a mental barrier or a mental wall that you need to help them see through in a way?
In order for them to get to understand their own minds and how their mind operates especially under pressure. You know, I think one of the stories we were kind of laughing about before the show, you know, watching the Pebble Beach right now and Spieth coming back. You don't think he went through some fear, worry, and doubt last year?
Sure.
After being #1 in the world? And it was funny, I played a lot of golf with Tom Glavine, and there would be times in one of the chapters in the book is about trying too hard. And there would be times in the course of a game where now I could see Tommy's overthrown, he's trying too hard. And I would go to the mound and put my hand on his shoulder. I said, Tommy, the long drive contest is over. Put your driver back in the bag, get your 3-wood out. This is about fairways and greens.
That's the thing. You have to have an intimate knowledge of the player, of the person, of the human being to know how to trigger a response and steer them in the right direction. I want to ask you real quick about Victor Zambrano, because you endorsed the Mets trading for Zambrano, a guy who has great physical tools, but was just obviously unable to put it together. Now, it was out there that you said that you could have him fixed in 10 minutes. What really happened there?
Well, #1, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm as dumb as I look. You know, so first of all, my mind would never go to that place. But what happened with the whole Victor Zambrano trade, we were all involved with that. I mean, everybody that knew Victor Zambrano and Scott Kazmir were all involved and had input in this trade. But he had some mechanical flaws that inhibited him from throwing strikes. So in a private meeting with Jeff Wilpon and Jim Duquette, we reviewed his delivery, and they said, what do you think? And I said, well, you know, if he makes just a couple simple adjustments, you know, this is simple. It'll allow him to repeat his delivery on a consistent basis and throw strikes. So on a conference call, about 2-hour conference call, they asked me towards the end of the call, it was my only input really on the call, they said, how long is this going to take for Zambrano to make these adjustments? I said, this is like simple. We take him down to the bullpen, we'll be there for a few minutes, and then he's got to practice this. Then he's got to drill it and drill it and drill it. So we make the trade, and the next day, my oldest son calls and said, Dad, I just watched ESPN Tim Kirchin said Rick Peterson can fix Zambrano in 10 minutes. And I said, Tim, thank you for putting me down this path in New York at that particular time.
So fake news basically is what that was at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, you've had such a great impact on some pitchers, John Maine, Oliver Perez, being able to turn those pitchers around and help them find themselves while they were here with the Mets. Zambrano was not a success story. Did that have more to do with his physical inabilities, the injuries that he had suffered, or was it that he wasn't able to embrace this mental aspect?
Well, this is not an hour and a half show, I don't think.
You can't really dive into it too deep.
No, but I think the only thing I'll say on air right now, when Victor Zambrano had his press conference after he injured himself the following year, he said to everybody in New York, which people might forget, I never threw one pitch healthy in New York. That was what he said in his press conference, and I'll leave it at that.
Let's switch gears here to try easy. Your method is try easy. 90% effort's going to get you 100% results. Well, Noah Syndergaard says that he wants to throw harder. What is your advice to Noah?
Well, you know what? I don't know Noah, but I'm a huge fan, and every time I watch him pitch, and I watch him pitch quite a bit because when he's on, if I get a chance to watch him, I'm dying to watch Noah Syndergaard. He is probably the most gifted pitcher in Major League Baseball today, and not only with his fastball, but also with his secondary pitches. But he locates, and when he gets to the bottom of the strike zone, there's nobody like Noah Syndergaard. But I don't think another 2, 3, 4 miles an hour are going to be the difference maker. And when you take a look at the research out of ASMI Lab, ligaments can only throw so hard before they start breaking down. And I don't think it's really an issue that he needs to throw harder, even though he probably can, because he's so physically gifted and he's mentally gifted. I mean, he's got the mind game going big time, and that's why he's Thor. And when he takes the mound, believe me, the opposing team, there's a lot of guys get Thoritis that do not want to be in that lineup.
Right, there's a ferocity. It's velocity and fear creates a
Absolutely.
ferocity when he's on the mound. But,
Right.
I mean, you don't need to remind Mets fans about injuries. I mean, 4 of the 5 Mets starters have all had Tommy John surgery. I mean, Syndergaard is the one guy who hasn't. He's the one. So it seems like the injury bug is really starting to bite these pitchers because maybe they're trying too hard.
Well, they're not alone. They're not alone, Steve. If you look at the industry, every year over the last 5 years, maybe longer, on opening day, there's 150 starters in the big leagues. There's 5 times 30. Over 50% of those starters go on a disabled list for a minimum of 2 months. It's industry-wide. The Mets are not alone. It just so happens that it seems to be a focus. But these are some of the most talented pitchers, starting pitchers in baseball today.
Well, this book, #1 on Amazon. Congratulations on that. You're also a sought-after keynote speaker as well. So people can look at you. They can watch you, in person, if you will.
Well, it's really been a pleasure. All the years I was with the Oakland A's and Moneyball and then New York, I've probably done about 30 corporate speaking events over the years, and I absolutely love it. And because of the book and the people I was around during this whole process, they said, Rick, you really need to look into this and go down this path. And after 40 years in professional baseball, I kind of decided that, you know what, there's another calling here, and I think I can help make a difference in other people's lives by sharing these stories and coaching the corporate world as well.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. This isn't just for baseball players. This is for everybody, and it's well worth it. The book is called Crunch Time. You can get it online everywhere. Former Mets pitching coach Rick Peterson, thank you so much. Very much appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Steve. And one last thing, if you could check out rickpetersoncoaching.com, that would go a long way.
Hop online. We'll do it. Thanks, Rick.
You got it.